let's talk about that latest research put out by the Catholic Relief Services and its allies, talking about malnutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, and others, and even anemia in pregnant women. We bring you details of that based on a 2022 survey. Joining us for the conversation, we have Kofi Essel. He is Director, Industrial Support Services with the Food and Drugs Authority. And joining the conversation as well, Dr. Mawuli Sabla, Regional Technical Advisor on Nutrition, CRS West Africa. That is Catholic Relief Services West Africa. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you, Dr. Sabla, and of course, Mr. Essel. Good morning.
Good morning.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you,
It's been a while since I had an interaction with this man, a long time. And it's good to know that you are still with the FDA doing some good work. But let me start with you, Dr. Sabla.
Yeah.
This whole initiative, this survey from 2022, what was the rationale behind it? What drove you to actually do this?
Yeah, thank you, Benjamin. So, Catholic Relief Services, we are the U.S. Caritas. We are the biggest Caritas globally. We are in over 100 countries. And health and nutrition is one of those key intervention areas where we seek to really address the challenge and uphold human dignity, because that's one of our key tenets. All life counts. So when it comes to nutrition, we have community interventions. But then within West Africa, the Assembly of Health Ministers in 2006, they passed a resolution because of the very high burden of micronutrient deficiencies for mandatory fortification of key staples and condiments in West Africa. So in collaboration with the West Africa Health Organization, that we have an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, some initial work has gone on fortification of key staples. So vitamin A in cooking oil, iron, folic acid in wheat flour, and of course, universal salt iodization. Because of salt iodization, these days you don't see children with goiter or cretinism.
Yeah.
So these
Which used to be common at a point.
Yes.
A little bit common.
Yes. And so over the past 2 decades, some significant effort has gone on across all 15 countries within West Africa. So Ghana has passed mandatory legislation on fortification of these 3 key vehicles as a way of addressing the high burden of micronutrient deficiencies and its public health consequences. For example, in Ghana, you take almost close to 40% of pregnant women anemic. 20% of children under 5 have vitamin A deficiencies. You also look at the dietary practices of our people. It's very monotonous. So, yeah, significant proportion of children under 2 are not able to meet the minimum acceptable diet. So when it comes to the challenges of anemia, iron deficiency, anemia, vitamin A deficiency, because every year you have to supplement children with high dose of vitamin A. It requires a huge logistics. So if we can put it in oil that everybody's consuming every day, we'll be able to reach maybe 70-80% of the population on a daily basis, providing, for example, maybe 30 to 50% of the recommended daily allowance of these key micronutrients. So it's an initiative that leverages the private sector, but then the public sector has to create an enabling environment. Unfortunately, the local industries are doing the fortification, but sometimes imports coming from other countries are not compliant. So FDA...
And that's where the FDA comes in.
Exactly, trying to reinforce the whole regulatory system. Because our research, which we conducted throughout West Africa, came up with some key gaps. And one of those critical gaps is compliance to the standards that have been established by countries. And some importers and local industries are not complying to these standards. So we thought it wise to procure some analytical devices. And then over the past few days, we've been conducting training of the key regulatory bodies. So the Food and Drugs Authority and also the customs at the ports and also the borders, the police, and also the Ghana Health Service was part of this. So His Excellency Daniel Mumuni, our country director, handed over officially these analytical devices to the Food and Drugs Authority, to the chief executive, with the hope that we will be able to reinforce the capacity of these regulatory institutions to be able to enforce compliance and make sure that our vulnerable populations receive the required micronutrients through these 45 staples.
Right.
So this is really the objective of the research and also of this collaboration with them.
Well, thank you for laying that foundation for the conversation. But let me come to you, Kofi. So on this very point, how problematic has it been for you, the FDA, to deal with this? Because it's a wide net that you have to spread to be able to catch everything. And I'm curious, if we're instituting this in Ghana, how is it that those coming from other countries don't have to meet the same requirements but are slipping through the net? What's happening?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think if anyone is slipping through the net, it will be largely smuggled goods, goods that are coming in not through the right channels. But the challenge has been the spot checks. Then one has to carry out to be able to determine it at early stages and address the problem. And so if you are not very quick to be on the market, to do monitoring on a constant basis. And oil is one commodity that, for example, we consume a lot in the country. And so you'll be surprised a 20-footer container load of oil comes into the country within a week.
It's gone.
It's consumed. And so at times it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
And we have instituted a yearly routine analysis or monitoring of some of these commodities. You'll recall not so long ago, we did a similar work. We came across a very interesting scenario where some people were, you have two standards for tomato products. We have what we call the tomato mixes and the tomato paste.
Yeah.
The tomato paste has a lot more concentration of tomatoes than the tomato mixes. But people were producing tomato mixes and labeling them as tomato paste. All right. Even though the tomato mix will also contain tomatoes, the standards allow you to reduce the tomato concentration in it. It was through the monitoring that we were able to tell that they were deceiving the consumers. So instead of labeling the product as tomato mix, they will label it as tomato paste, but the specification is that of tomato mix, and they were selling it at the price of tomato paste, deceiving the unsuspecting consumer. It is through monitoring that you're able to detect some of these things. So regulation keeps running after some of these practices. It's unfortunate that some people will slip through, but it is never too late, because at the end of the day, it will hit the market, and if it hits the market and you pick it up, then you will take the appropriate regulatory action. But what Catholic Relief Program has done by supporting the Food and Drugs Authority with these analytical field, equipment, is a welcome gesture, because it is going to enhance the monitoring practices. These equipment are very expensive in the first place. Handling, that's why we have to take 3 days to go through the training sections in the use or deployment of these equipment. And so, yes, we will do the monitoring, bring it to the lab, and then have it tested. But now we have field kits that you can go to the field with it. You will be at the port with it. And we are not going to concentrate only at, say, the Tema port, because we have several other ports across the country.
Right.
And we know some of the loose areas where most of these people... Hotspots. Could you believe we went to a place in Togo? It's a very popular market in Togo. And then we tagged the vehicle. And we spotted the vehicle up north. So instead of coming through a flower, they prefer to travel all the way up north and then move through Temale and come down to Kumasi, and make the distribution.
Wow.
Why wouldn't they come in through? But so they look at where your capacities are very low, and then that is what they do. And so you trend the movement, and you get to see that. Why is it that all the vegetable oils coming into the country are coming in through one particular port? You recall some time ago, that one was even more related to rice. The government ruled that all rice imports will come in through Tema Port. and not through elubo and all that. So there are economic practices, and then through that, people manage to smuggle things through. But it is never too late. We've been able to, get these gadgets. Moreover, we will have to intensify in our public education too, because every fortified food comes up or has a particular identification logo that you put on the product label.
Right.
That is what consumers will also have to look out for.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, so once they are able to identify themselves associate themselves with that particular logo, okay, they will shun away from products that are not fortified.
Right.
And it's important so because of their personal nutritional status.
Right.
That they understood what this fortification is all about, why we are asking that food should be fortified. It is for micronutrient purposes, and we know vitamin A. So there's a public education component of it, and they all go hand in hand. And it is part of a regulatory framework. You cannot have a regulatory framework without public education. Failure to carry out public education would mean that people don't even understand why you are doing this. You know?
Right.
I remember one situation like that. I'm going to be Angwa, but I'm going to be Anyangwa.
Yeah.
So I mean, even among the Angwa, there's sunflower, there's other vegetable oil and all of that.
So once you realize that this one is fortified with a micronutrient that is health beneficial, then I will go in for it.
Right. Let me quickly come to you, Dr. Sabla. So you made mention of cretinism, which, in other words, many people will understand stunted growth.
Yeah.
And interestingly, there's a vitamin A deficiency. If I look at UNICEF statistics in recent times, it points to the fact that 1 in every 5, close to 1 in every 5 children in Ghana under 5 years is stunted.
Yeah.
The growth is stunted. And sometimes you look at children and sometimes you see someone who says he or she is 13 or 15.
Yeah.
You're like, this looks like a 7-year-old or 8-year-old somewhere else. Okay? While 1 in every 10 children under 5 is underweight. Yeah. How crucial is vitamin A in building our children and all of that?
I mean, thank you, Benjamin. I mean, you know that children under 5, every year we supplement them with high dose of vitamin A, which is then conserved, in their livers, and then they need it over a period of time. They benefit from it because it reinforces their immune system. It helps them to combat xerophthalmia, blindness, night blindness. And so
someone who uses glasses, we know that it's very good for the eye. Yeah. Sometimes even as an adult, you go and buy these supplements because they are good for you.
So vitamin A is a key micronutrient to boost your immune system, but overall, physiological and well-being. So providing vitamin A on a daily basis through fortified oil then helps us to make sure that those who cannot afford diverse diets and those whose diets are monotonous will be receiving some minimum amount of vitamin A, like I indicated, 30 to 50% of the recommended daily allowance, so that we can really sustainably combat vitamin A deficiencies. So in fact, it's just one of those interventions that we are doing at scale, leveraging the private sector, oil industries, and making sure that both locally produced and import are compliant to these standards. And also when it comes to other intervention areas of Catholic Relief Services within communities where we work, we want to make sure that we are not just addressing just one micronutrient deficiency per se. So we want to look at, the key micronutrients of public health concern. Right. So you're talking of iron, talking of vitamin A, talking of zinc, iodine, and folate. Right. In fact, folate deficiency can lead mothers to give birth to children with neural tube defect, which means your immune system and your neural central nervous system is not well developed.
I am told when my mother was pregnant with me and even after birth, one of the few things I allowed her to take by way of medicine was folic acid.
Yes.
And I take it quite a lot.
Yes.
It's very good. It's a B supplement, right?
B9.
B complex.
B9.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So essentially, these micronutrients are required in small quantities, but they are key for our overall health and well-being. And even for those of us who can afford to eat diverse diet, we still supplement sometimes because there's a minimum amount of food you can eat. Yeah. So you need to sometimes take supplement. So you can imagine our mothers in rural communities that we don't have even access to these supplements. When they are pregnant, sometimes through the Ghana Health Service, we try to supplement them to avoid all these deficiencies. But large-scale food fortification is one of those sustainable interventions that helps us to consistently address this challenge. Currently, in the northern part of Ghana, we have several initiatives looking at pregnant women and their deliveries and the complications they go through. And CRS has set up kind of a system that allows women to receive the service they need when it comes to delivery, because most of our women die through complications as a result of being anemic, as a result of all the deficiencies linked to.
And I do know that per the data, even before I ask you to talk about the images we're showing, approximately 50 and 66% respectively of non-pregnant and pregnant women and preschool age children suffer from anemia. Roughly 30% of preschool children suffer from iron and vitamin A deficiency. These are startling levels. So if you don't supplement,
and you cannot repair. You cannot repair, like you indicated. I mean, you cannot repair a stunted brain.
No.
So
once the damage is done,
exactly. Ghana is actually one of those countries where we've made significant progress when it comes to addressing stunting. So we are talking about 18%. So maybe 1 out of 5. But in most other African countries, it's usually more than 1 out of 3.
Wow.
So when you take the statistics,
that's about 30 plus percent.
Yes, for West Africa. And stunting has several factors. I mean, you can have your diverse diet, you eat right and have all the nutrients, but when a child, for example, has diarrhea, constantly losing those nutrients. So you also need to bring in that integration of water, sanitation, and hygiene, appropriate care practices to be able to fully benefit even from those nutrients. So we don't look at programs in isolation. We look at integrating these different components: health, wash, nutrition, nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and bringing all the different components together to be able to meet, the required.
Just tell us a bit about those pictures before I come back to Kofi. The pictures we showed a short while ago. What is happening here?
So here, this is the training that we were undertaking with the Food and Drugs Authority, and here they are trying to analyze iron in fortified wheat flour. So they are going through the process using the analytical devices that we have provided, and there you find
one of them,
various key officers from the different regions of FDA, all meeting and undertaking this training on how to do this analysis.
Customs officers were also
there. We procured those devices from BioAnalytics, a company in Germany that produces these devices. It's field practically deployed, and it allows us to be able to do the quantitative analysis on the field, at the port, but also at the marketplace. So it's a very convenient and adapted to within the context where we are operating to be able to ensure that there's compliance. We enforce compliance to meet the standards when it comes to the levels of iron in fortified flour, for example, the levels of vitamin A in fortified oil, or the levels of iodine in iodized salt.
All right. Kofi, so looking at all of this support, I know you have logistical constraints, you have human resource constraints, like you mentioned. You can't be everywhere like you would want to be, unless you're going to say you don't have those constraints.
Every agency, every institution will have these constraints.
So with these, how is this equipment going to enhance your work, and what would this mean for the nutritional benefits of Ghanaians, especially children?
Well, we as enforcement agency, it's going to help a huge jump. There will be going to be a huge jump in our monitoring practices. And so, unlike previously where you have to go sample, bring it to the lab, it takes a number of days for you to analyze. And remember, you will have a queue in the lab for you to carry out this analysis. This will allow you to do or carry out the monitoring, and not only qualitatively but quantitatively, because the specifications or the standards for these fortified foods tells you that for this particular micronutrient, this should be the minimum amount in the product. All right, and there was a very interesting incident during the training. a particular oil sample was tested, and you could see the variation, all right? It is understood that these things can occur as a result of storage over a period of time.
Right.
All right. But
there was a flux. You pick the same product, you test about 3, and you are getting different methods.
And this helps us also to, either review standards or review the monitoring strategies and all that. And so we're using it just like the police service, receiving new vehicles or new motorcycles. And then they send judicial notices to criminals to tell them that, look here, now we have these devices.
We can chase you.
You have to comply.
You have to comply.
Exactly.
And so in a way, we're telling the importers, we're telling
the local industries.
If you smuggle and bring the product to the market, now I can bring a device to the market, there and then carry out the test, and then we'll be able to penalize you, take decisions there and then. And it is not going to be a situation where we are going to ask you to go and then fortify, because we don't have industries that are going to refortify. It is going to be very expensive. All you have to do is to lose the product. And we're not just going to seize the product because you have failed to provide what the law requires you to. So if, for example, the specification for vegetable oil says that it should be fortified with minimum 10 ppm of, say, vitamin A, and then your vitamin A concentration is less than 2 or it is absent, it fails to be called a vegetable oil.
Right.
Therefore, you will not allow you to.
You can't even put it on.
You can't put it on the market. So it is. We're going to help us a lot, and I will continually say that we are very grateful to the Catholic Relief Services for, coming to our aid and giving us this. Look, public health practices and then protection is diverse. And then you have all kinds of players. And we're very happy that they want to partner the Food and Drugs Authority. And I think Mr. Tsabla, I would say, has played a very pivotal role in helping the FDA Ghana. Probably not because he has his roots in Ghana. With this particular
charity begins at home.
We have trained him well to be a good Ghanaian. So wherever he goes to, he thinks home. And so I believe that now we can be rest assured. Our officers at the port, yesterday I was at the training program, I sat in for my boss, and you could tell from the body language that, wow, now this is going to be very interesting. And believe you me, I think on Tuesday, it was when this incident of the testing happened, they wanted to deploy the devices there and then. And so this Christmas period, all the vegetable oils that are likely going to come in, every single one of them, right at the port. Not that we will allow you to bring it home and then we'll come in later to come and sample, right at the port. And the FDA is working very closely with the port authorities, such that if the FDA says this product is not leaving the port, believe me, it's not leaving the port.
I see.
And the customs were actually at the training.
Customs were there.
Right.
The police were also.
The customs. This was a customs lab. Yeah. And so they now speak the same language. They will speak the same language with us. If for nothing, if the FDA test proves positive or proves negative, all right, and we say we cannot allow it, customs of the lab can equally, because they have the same device.
They can also check. And the results will be the same.
The result will be the same. And therefore, we're going to speak from the same, sing from the same page of the hymn book, and then make sure that Ghanaians receive the best of the nutrition that we are talking about.
Especially important around this time. Final take, final words.
When we talk about food fortification generally, I think it is the education that Ghanaians will have to appreciate. Why is government saying that products or commodities will be fortified? Yes, it is to help introduce micronutrients. And so whenever there is a study that is carried out that shows that there's deficiency of a particular micronutrient within the population, that is why these interventions are brought in. And one that has become of serious challenge is that of salt. Okay, probably time did not allow us to discuss
iodine.
Right. And at a point in time, I remember at one level, somebody suggested that when we talk about iodine, you only look at iodine tincture, the one that you apply on the surfaces of wounds. And so thinking that we are adding chemicals to product. But that is not it. It's a micronutrient. And beyond goiter, which is very visible, there are other hidden IDDs, what we call the IDDs.
Thyroid gland and its function and all that.
The standard with the cretinism, the low IQ, weight, low IQ. And that is very, very critical.
You cannot repair the brain.
Okay? The study, before it was started in 2006, you go to a certain community and you measure the IQ. And everyone there, especially those of school-going age, have very low IQ.
And it's because of this deficiency of iodine.
And the most surprising thing is that when we introduced iodine in salt, these communities were producing salt, but they don't want to eat diluted salt because they thought we have added chemicals to salt, and that their ancestors
some
have
awareness
eating, And so we realized that micronutrient fortification should be something that we have to continue to discuss.
Okay.
And I'm very happy that...
and I think we'll make more time moving forward, especially as Christmas approaches, for us to get into some of these. Final words, you have to be very brief. Our time is up.
In fact, I mean, as all Catholic Relief Services, we have huge school feeding programs across West African countries, funded by the USDA and also local governments. And as part of that, we're doing more and more procurements of locally fortified commodities. And it's all linked to the fact that we want to ensure that we invest in human capital development. We want to make sure that the next generation of our children are really, in the right nutritional status to be able to contribute meaningfully to the development of our countries. For every $1 that you invest in large-scale food fortification, for example, it turns out to be $16 to $32 in terms of economic outcomes in preventing micronutrient deficiencies. So these are huge. And so we want to encourage our government to be able to prioritize the nutritional well-being of our population. And that will lead to the human capital development that can really contribute meaningfully to the development of our countries. And Catholic Relief Services, our Ghana country program will continue to support the government and people of Ghana to be able to continue to drive this agenda, and we'll continue to stand by the Food and Drugs Authority. Currently, we've revived the National Alliances for Food Fortification, and right after this meeting, we have a meeting with the Ghana Health Services to discuss with them how to make them more functional in engaging the public-private partnership dialogue that is required to ensure that fortification is sustainable in Ghana. So thank you very much, Benjamin, for this.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for the education. I'm sure some people have watched. They've learned a thing or two. All of us have learned something, and we'll also beware. We'll follow your marching orders. And as and when you delineate, just as with like the refrigerators and the rest, you see the star rating. As you put that on those labelings, we can also follow and know what we are consuming better. Thank you, gentlemen. Kofi Essel is Director, Industrial Support Services with the FDA. He joined the conversation. We also have Dr. Mauli Sabla, Regional Technical Advisor on Nutrition, CRS, that is Catholic Relief Services West Africa. Well, from here, we'll be telling you a bit about EduProof and their study abroad opportunities. Stay with us. We'll be back with more.